Happy 2021, everyone, and thanks for virtually being with us today. For those of you tuning in for the first time, I'm Molly Shane, and I am a senior sales executive here at Sojourn. However, today, I will be serving as your moderator and guiding us through the next 60 minutes where we will dive into our next digital advertising session. So back in October, we started up this Digital 101 webinar series where we're focusing on different marketing channels and techniques that make up travel marketers' digital advertising plans. So each month we invite product experts to join us and explain the building blocks of that specific channel. And then we get to pick their brains with the hundreds of questions we receive from our listeners. So far, we've explored programmatic display advertising, search engine marketing, and also how all the channels complement one another. So if you're interested in one of those topics and missed out, head to sojourn.com for the recordings to hear more. Today, we continue our mission and focus on Facebook and Instagram as an advertising platform. We will explore the tools at a high level before diving into social ad creative, how to ensure you're reaching the right travelers with your messaging, the benefits of running ads on Facebook, and then jump into performance before wrapping up with our Q&A. So before I happily hand the reins over to our product experts, I'll give you a quick intro to Sojourn. So Sojourn is a travel data company that specializes in highly targeted online advertising campaigns for the hotel, attraction, and destination and tourism industries. Our access to real-time travel data allows us to find new guests heading into your markets. We introduce them to your brand and then ultimately introduce them to your business via our multi-channel ad campaigns. So now over to our social experts. First, we have Sojourn's own Vice President of Product, Dave Golden. Following Dave, we will hear from Facebook's fantastic Michelle Martin, who is joining us as a Facebook account manager. So Dave, do you mind introducing yourself to our listeners?
Sure. Thanks, Molly. So yeah, Dave Golden, head of product for Sojourn, and I joined Sojourn a year ago, just exactly a year ago. But I've been in ad tech for 20 years. And my experience is really in building platforms that help marketers leverage consumer data primarily across multiple channels where really the focus is on driving performance and efficiency. And so I'm really excited to be here today with Michelle to talk to you about how to do just that on Facebook and Instagram.
Thanks, Dave. We're excited to hear from you as well. And before we jump into the presentation, Michelle, do you mind giving our listeners a bit more background on yourself as well?
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Excited to be here today. Excited to provide some additional insight into the Facebook ecosystem. But as Molly mentioned, my name is Michelle Martin. I am a Facebook account manager focusing specifically on the travel vertical. Have been at Facebook for about 2.5 years now and have been in the ad ecosystem for over 5. So excited to dive in shortly.
Thanks, Michelle. A quick reminder to submit your questions for our presenters throughout the webinar by using the webinar control panel. It's over on the right. So with that, Dave, over to you.
All right, we're going to start with an overview of social overall, and then we'll start diving deeper into Facebook and Instagram. So so starting off really with where marketers are spending digital dollars today, and social leads the pack. No surprise, it's a huge category. Consumers are spending a lot of time there. And it's not only large, but it's growing. So these numbers are from early 2020, and we update these every year, but we have seen throughout the year that the social share of digital spend continues to grow. So it's likely over 30% as we sit here today. And that's important because Facebook and social is widely adopted by consumers, right? That's why it's the largest category of spend across digital. Consumers spend a huge amount of time here, and there's a wide variety of apps. So when we talk about social, we're talking about all of the apps you see on the screen and more. But today we're really going to focus on Facebook and Instagram. So it's really important. Facebook and Instagram are hugely important because they're two of the largest social platforms on the planet. They have billions of active users per month. And especially when it comes to researching and planning and talking about travel. Facebook and Instagram are really essential resources for travelers and great places to promote your brand. And it's both Facebook and Instagram are relevant throughout the traveler's path to purchase, so otherwise known as the marketing funnel. Right at the top of the funnel, it's really about building awareness for your brand as travelers are dreaming about their next trip. Then it's starting to drive consideration for your brand as they hone in on their destination and your destination. And then lastly, it's driving conversion. So as they're actively comparing alternatives, and they may have already even engaged with your site. And at every step of the way, Facebook and Instagram are playing a role and are appropriate to drive your message home and to drive consumers down that funnel to book with you directly. Certainly, a big piece of this is that they're spending so much time on Facebook and Instagram, 5 times more time spent here during that travel journey than anywhere else. So it's important to be here kind of across that entire journey. So while we're going to be talking a lot about audiences and creatives today, there's really 3 other aspects of the Facebook ads platform that we'd like to highlight. The first is just how engaging it is in terms of with the advertising. So we see strong engagement with ads when you think about click rates or completion rates on video, actually liking ads or sharing ads with their friends. And we're really seeing much higher engagement within Facebook and Instagram than we do on other channels that we work in. And certainly the targeting matters here. The ads are highly relevant, but it's also really about the environment. So the environment is very natural and native. The advertising and how it fits in with the consumption of all content. And so so that really kind of plays into the customers' just natural interaction with advertising, not seeing it as kind of completely separate, right? It's identified as advertising, but it's part, integrated in part of the experience, which makes it kind of front and center. Second is just the consumer's mindset when they're using social platforms like Facebook and Instagram. They're in a discovery mode. They're collecting information, sharing information. It's not task oriented like other places where they might be consuming ads. So much more engaging. Second, because Facebook is and Instagram are logged in experiences, we can now create a seamless kind of ad delivery across devices, right? We all jump between our devices as we're navigating our day. It's not at all uncommon to see ads on one device, but then go and actually make a purchase or a booking on a separate device. And because of this logged in environment, we can both target consumers seamlessly across their different devices, but also measure the effectiveness across those devices as well. That really helps to drive performance and efficiency. And then lastly, we love that Facebook is really customized to your objectives, right? So whether it's driving consumers to your Facebook page or your Instagram story to deepen their engagement with you. Maybe they're just building awareness, they're just starting to do their trip planning, or conversely, driving them straight to your website for that booking as they're further down that path to purchase. So that's one of the reasons why it does work up and down the funnel real well. These objectives for each campaign are highly tuned to where consumers are in that funnel. So before we look and dive into how ads look on Facebook and the audiences, we wanted to really draw a quick distinction between organic social and paid social. And we get a lot of questions about this. Organic social is really your brand's presence on Facebook and Instagram. So it's your Facebook page, it's your Instagram account and all the posts you do. It's the interaction you have with your customers on that platform. That's your organic social experience. Paid social is the advertising. It's the used to boost traffic to your organic presence and also boost traffic straight to your own business, your own website. So we're going to mostly focus on paid social today. That's the bulk of what we're talking about. We're going to have one small section coming up here about Instagram that really kind of delves into organic, so you can understand that environment better to help you think about how you would advertise in it. But we're really going to focus on paid social. The key point here is really that you need to do both well, and they really kind of work in conjunction with each other. So now we'll start moving into how ads look on Facebook and Instagram. Michelle's going to cover this in much more depth. I've got just a couple slides to kind of give context and set the stage. So first is is across the different devices, as we talked about. One of the great things here is that Facebook kind of automatically formats ads for the appropriate device. So it takes the same raw assets, the image you provide, the headline, the body copy, the call to action, and it's automatically formatting that for desktop, so it's appropriate there, or for the mobile device. So you don't really have to think about it. It's kind of managed for you from that perspective. Next, when we move into Instagram, and this is where we're going to touch a little bit on the organic experience now. So in this example, we've got Universal Orlando, and again, this is their social presence. This is not their advertising that we're showing here. But with Instagram, there's some really unique features that are used quite a bit differently by consumers. So if we can stay it back on that last slide, like most things, the way the world works today, I learn a lot from my young adult children. And so I'll give you a couple of quick examples of how they use this, and I think it'll illustrate kind of the differences, and then we'll kind of summarize that in a moment. But when my kids, young adult kids go onto Instagram, right, they're looking at their feed, they're basically scrolling, their sound's typically off, it's mostly photos, there's a little bit of video. As they're scrolling that feed, it's kind of looking at history a little bit. They can click into one of their friends, they can see, go back and look at some photos that maybe they remembered that they had posted, maybe that they want to share now. But it's kind of more of a just browsing, no sound, more static experience for them. Conversely, you got stories now. Stories are really about what's happening now. So again, this is like they're clicking onto a story of their friends or the brands that they follow. And that story now has sound on typically, and it's video, it's more activity. And they're basically swiping through that, and ads are interspersed as they swipe through that. But it's the key thing about stories is that they go away after a day, right? So it's like if you want to catch up with your friends or again with the brands you're following, it's it's a daily activity to go see what's happening. And so it's a much different kind of usage pattern. So if you go to the next slide, it really summarizes that. The feed is really kind of, it is your official face of your brand, right? It's kind of where you kind of plan out your content. You might have seasonal things there, upcoming events, right? That's kind of your planned content. Stories give you a chance to kind of push the envelope a little bit. This is a chance to really kind of show the personality behind the brand. It gives you room to experiment. More sound, more video, right? There's a lot more in the last 24 hours. So it's kind of the what's happening now for your brand. And then if you think about the advertising that goes into each of these sections, right, it kind of has to match. And so you really have to think about the stories differently. Michelle will talk a lot about that. But we wanted to kind of draw that distinction mainly because we get a lot of questions on it. So we can go to the next. So now we move into audiences. So first, we'll talk about how Facebook views audiences and what kind of audiences are available on Facebook. And then we'll talk a little bit about kind of Sojourn's participation in that and what we bring to the party in terms of our knowledge of the traveler as well. So first, under trip consideration. So this is Facebook's knowledge of its users based on everything they do, right? So what content they're interacting with, what brands they follow, what kind of content they share. That will help determine, are they travelers? Are they planning a trip right now, right? So there's a bunch of information that we all kind of share and consume relative to travel on these platforms that help Facebook identify us as travelers. And then next is custom audiences, and this is where we can now layer on, or you can layer on your data. So this might be your customer list, your email list, the visitors to your website, right? That can be now layered on or added into Facebook, along with partner data from folks like Sojourn, where we have specific knowledge on travelers, and that can also be brought on to then enhance the targeting from what's already available on Facebook. And so next we'll talk a little bit about what we do with and how we do this. So we've got thousands of partnerships, data partnerships globally, where we're seeing signals coming in from early searches for flights and hotels and tours and activities, and we're building a profile of consumers based on that is both kind of active in terms of real time, what are they looking at now, but also historical, what type of traveler are there? Are these business travelers? Are they leisure travelers? Do they travel, looking for luxury properties? Right, so we get a real good sense over time for the nature of travel, as well as the trips that they're in right now. And all of this data gets essentially activated on Facebook and Instagram and other platforms as well, but certainly used heavily on Facebook and Instagram. So we go to next. And then revisiting this funnel, right? So now we can start thinking about how we're targeting consumers based on what we know about them. And so this, in this example here, we've got someone that's starting to think about a winter trip. We can start to see some searches. Maybe they haven't started searching for skiing yet, but we know that, hey, last year they took a big ski trip, so probably interested in skiing. Next, we start to see, oh, they're actually planning a trip to Europe. They've honed it, they've honed in on Europe, and they're starting to search some ski resorts. So now we're kind of confirming that. And then as they go deeper, now we know, all right, they've picked Switzerland. Now they're looking and they're actively planning Switzerland. So now we can, right, if we have a business in Switzerland, we can now start to really try to drive conversion against that. They may already be kind of searching, visiting our website. And we can now help drive that conversion, that last mile, finish that out as they're in that comparative mode. And so all up and down the funnel, these audiences are used, and in conjunction with the right message, right, and the right placement. And so lastly, I wanted to give you just a quick case study. So this is an example of a tour operator in Ireland. He came to us looking to grow their bookings, their direct bookings. And we ran a 3-month campaign and program for them, primarily on Facebook and Instagram, but it had some elements of a display channel in there as well. But over that 3 months, we drove significant revenue at a very high return on investment. And a big chunk of that was clearly the targeting and the environment that Facebook and Instagram offered. But then the last part about it is consistency. So this wasn't a campaign that ran for a week and then stopped and then came back and a month later and for another week. Right? It does take some of that consistent messaging over time to drive results like this. And so it's this great combination of the environment, the audience, the strategy of the campaign that will help you build your direct bookings and get you success on the platform. And so with that, I'll hand it to Michelle, and she'll do a deeper dive into Facebook.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Dave. Appreciate that amazing setup. But as Dave mentioned, Facebook and Instagram are uniquely positioned to help us really connect with our customers across the path of purchase in order to drive your business forward, especially as we're navigating recovery overall. Today, I'd like to spend the second part of our session is just keeping it very conversational, but focusing on a deeper dive of our travel solutions. First, I'll highlight one trend that has emerged over the past few years, that travelers and travel communities are really spending their time on Instagram. We put together a survey of over 21,000 people conducted by our Facebook IQ team and found that travel is the #1 interest on Instagram. Probably not a huge surprise to a lot of you. But second, 45% of people use Instagram for travel inspiration. I know I'm guilty of that. I'm sure a lot of you today are guilty of that, finding where we can travel next through Instagram, through hashtags and whatnot. Instagram is really shaping the travel journey for us. Across all of our platforms, we're seeing a shift in how people are communicating. So having over 500 million hashtag travels on Instagram through posts is probably no surprise overall. Now more than ever, many of you are wearing multiple hats, like running day-to-day operations, managing different properties. Our platforms really offer a turnkey solution, enabling you to do your job on the ground while assuring that your marketing and brand operations are working for you online. Dynamic Facebook products built for hotels enable you to facilitate discovery, reach your consumers, and be there every step of the journey. On this slide, you actually can see 4 different examples showing each stage of the customer journey of the customer funnel, starting with video to trip consideration, which Dave just dove into, to prospecting, and finally to retargeting. In addition to that, what is shown here is you can try using stories, as Dave was also mentioning, and really transport people with 3D photos, panoramas, and immersive content or immersive experiences. So how can we really stand out across the board and grab people's attention with the different content that we can post on the platform? Starting at the top of the funnel, we have trip consideration. So reaching people who are in market to travel and drive consideration. Guests, they're in the midst of discovery. We may know where they want to go. We know they want to go somewhere, but often haven't decided exactly where, or they have a destination in mind and haven't necessarily decided where they want to stay. Here, you can reach guests. They've made important decisions, even if they haven't visited your website or connected with your brand directly. In order to activate, all you need to do is toggle on the trip consideration option within Ads Manager at the ad set level. And once a consumer has demonstrated that intent, we actually can help deliver ad creative in a way that's both efficient and effective through trip consideration. For this strategy, you can leverage video and image assets, ideally both at the same time. We'll dive into creative in a couple of minutes here, but really thinking about the different options that we have across the platform and leaning into all of those formats. Another option is to reach people who have been to your website or app to drive a booking. Ultimately, you want to drive conversions with the right audience at the right time. And once guests are aware of your brand, secure that booking by reminding them of what you have to offer in a quick and convenient way, which is retargeting. It's important to remember that 98% of visitors, yes, 98% of visitors will not convert on their first time visit. So what will bring them back? The retargeting. For a standalone property, this can be done with the Facebook pixel and custom audiences. In other words, bringing and building a cohort of people that have been to a certain page but not have yet booked. For a master brand that have many properties and many destinations, the next option is actually likely best, which leverages a feed. Dynamic travel ads, particularly hotel ads for prospecting and retargeting, is a solution that allows a brand to expand their audience and drive bookings, though through a feed that houses creative for multiple individual hotels. So hotel ads for retargeting, diving a little bit deeper here, allows retargeting of multiple properties at the exact same time, automatically, dynamically, and at scale. So if we need an automated and personalized way to get in front of our folks, this is the solution for you. Ads will pull from your hotel catalog, especially essentially the home inventory across the Facebook family of apps in the catalog, which can pull in the availability and pricing from your website. The example here is shown on the right is actually someone that visited the IHG Times Square. Hotel ads for prospecting adds to the convenience by enabling you to use the catalog that you set up in retargeting in order to reach new audiences. This means you can easily expand your audience by reaching out and engaging people who have potentially demonstrated interest by looking for products similar to yours. There are a few different creative formats that can actually be leveraged here. The example on the left is actually a collection ad, but you also can use static images and videos or other formats like carousel as well. So there's a lot of flexibility with travel ads in terms of our ad format too. The last travel offering I'll share today is actually highlighting a unique property identity. You can reach out to these guests who have already booked with information about loyalty programs or additional business opportunities. Maybe you have a spa, a ski resort in Switzerland, a golf course, any local experiences and tours shown on the right. You also can reach people that are in close proximity to your hotel by using the store visit objective. This recommends them to come into the bar or restaurant, so maybe you can also help with reservations or whatnot. Rather than rely on different like emails or face-to-face interactions at check-in, advertisers can drive this awareness through Facebook. As you know, guests want to feel at home, they want to be seen, and they want to be taken care of. Much of this hinges on the ability to communicate with the brand and ensure that they're feeling heard at all times and all stages of the trip. Shown on the left, messaging is a great way to facilitate this communication pre-trip. So with check-in options, maybe they can check in on their phone, through their mobile device. Mid-trip, resolving any issues, booking tours, reservations. And then finally, post-trip, remind them why they should choose your brand again, why they should come back once they checked out. You also can do this through post-trip surveys, different offers, and so forth. But with all of this, let's dive into overall formats. This is especially important to build your creative for mobile and think about how you can really stand out in a customer's mobile experience. So when you're looking at this here, what really comes to mind? I mean, these are beautiful images, beautiful landscapes. We all want to probably go there, escape our quarantines, and visit. But it's also a sea of sameness. So what can we do to really stand out? Nowhere here we can easily see or attribute the brand to this specific creative. And given how quickly people are moving on mobile, there's a strong need to stand out. 56% of a brand sales lift from digital advertising can be attributed to high quality creative. That's over half. This study here found 5 keys to advertising effectively. 1, being creative. 2, reach, targeting, recency, and context. That's why it's important to build creative thoughtfully. And one of the best ways to do that is by leveraging data and insights from past campaigns and testing and learning. So really putting on a testing hat, a testing mindset when thinking about everything across the platform, but especially creative. If you're not sure where to get started, I actually highly recommend visiting our Creative Hub, where you can create different mock-ups for ads, share them for feedback, and experience your work as though it's live. So seeing what it exactly would look directly through the platform. In addition to the speed, people also feel differently when watching video on TV versus mobile. So thinking about what that experience looks like overall will also be really important. Traditionally, TV viewing has had people in very relaxed states, but on mobile, we're on the go. People are in many different states, including happy, inspired, excited. So really thinking about how people can be feeling across the board with mobile. So let's say you're scrolling through this Doritos ad. Where do your eyes go first? Many of you probably see this video here. Then maybe you'll look at the post copy, maybe you'll look at the brand on the top, or even less likely, you'll look at the comments. Ask yourself, is this all the information you want to convey in the video? Brands really can't rely on just the headline or just the post copy to do the heavy lifting. So ensuring that we get our point across within the content there. These results are consistent across campaigns. We ran a meta study comparing TVCs to mobile optimized videos and saw strong lifts in brand awareness and message association. Actually, creative optimized for mobile increased average view time by 1.5 times and completed views by 1.8 times. So huge numbers there, thinking about how we can make sure that we're mobile or optimizing for mobile creative. With stats like that, it's important to keep in mind that we highly recommend to include both video and image assets in all campaigns. I alluded to this before. By uploading both, the auction will be able to pick which to show. So say you love watching videos, but maybe your neighbor never watches any videos, the algorithm will pick up on that and ensure to show your neighbor only the static images that you have within your campaign, and then you will go ahead and see all of the video assets that you have in the campaign. The meta study showed that mixed asset campaigns always outperform single style asset campaigns too. So With that, video is really taking off, making sure we're having our video cap on or adding motion to our images, but still recommending to have both in case your neighbor is really just not leaned into video. So how do we do that? How do we build with mobile? How do we get better creative? Start with mobile best practices. Shorter durations are extremely crucial. Anywhere from 6 to 10 seconds actually tends to be the sweet spot for most of our high-performing DR ads. But we have seen some longer ones perform well too. I would never go over 15 seconds when I say longer. So thinking 15 seconds or less in terms of length. Designed for sound off, but delight with sound on. As Dave mentioned before, a lot of folks are likely scrolling through their feeds with their sound off, but when they're through their stories, a lot of folks have their sound on. So designed for sound off, just in case that user doesn't have the phone volume on. Communicate the message clearly. Pick one message that you want to get across and really focus in on that message. So it's really, really easy for your user to understand what the ask is that you are doing. And frame your visual story to the right aspect ratio. In newsfeed, 1:1 is the suggested ratio, allowing the call to action like buy now or learn more to be visible on the screen, opposed to a 9:16. Obviously 9:16 will be really important from a story perspective. So if we're able to create multiple sizes, 9:16 would be a great second option. Overall, really appreciate you guys all tuning in and learning a little bit more about how hoteliers can better advertise across the Facebook platform. But after today, the Sojourner team will actually be sending out our sub-vertical playbooks that we put together in mid-2020 last year. And these playbooks actually focus in on certain sub-verticals. So there's one for the hotelier brands, the airlines, cruise, and DMOs. And here we'll actually be able to see a lot of the most relevant information on hotel products that was discussed today, and different links where you can learn more about topics like the auction, creative, measurement, anything from a testing perspective as well. But with that, I'll flip it over to Molly, and I think we'll open it up for some questions.
Great job, presenters. That was fantastic. And thank you all for the great questions that you've been submitting. So feel free to continue sending those our way if you have a couple more, again, in the webinar control panel. So let's get to these questions. So first, I think this is a good one. How can an advertiser make their limited marketing budget, let's say specifically in this example, it's under $500, work for them to still drive bookings to the website and ultimately away from OTAs? Dave, that's probably something you can speak to.
Sure, I can start that one off. Yeah, when you have a limited budget, it's super important to focus, right? So focus on channels, not try to spread that money across lots of channels, right? If we're going to focus on Facebook, put Facebook and Instagram together, and then focus on the funnel stage. Like start at the bottom. Like you're already driving some awareness and consideration of your brand. People are visiting your site. Make sure you're staying in front of them, because they're when they visit your site doesn't mean, right? I mean they're in consideration. You're now in consideration. They're actively looking at you. Stay top of mind. This retargeting that we talked about, right? That can happen on Facebook and Instagram keeps you there. So as they're making that final decision, you're right there. We can, depending on how much site traffic you have, you might not have a lot yet. So then we can go a little bit further up the funnel. We can start to look at people that are already focusing on your destination. So they're highly qualified. And so that kind of makes the most of limited dollars. And as the dollars get bigger, you typically go up and starting to build more awareness. In that example I showed you, right, it was a fairly small program that was able to drive significant results. And I guess consistency as well. Like take that budget, spend it month to month. Don't start and stop.
Definitely.
I think the only thing that I would add to that, I think that nails it right on the head. But just to reiterate, optimizing to your campaigns or optimizing your campaigns, whatever matters most for you. So if bookings matter most, making sure that you're optimizing towards bookings, like Dave was mentioning. It's also important to think about your customer experience overall. Is it clear? Is it friction free? What does your website flow look like? Is it easy for your potential customer to book? Is there anything unclear on your site that could confuse a potential customer? and maybe like segue away. So really thinking about all of those experiences will be important there. And then as Dave mentioned, utilizing the retargeting, creating those website custom audiences for anyone that hasn't, booked quite yet or gotten to a certain stage on your site that you're tracking, also super crucial and important.
For sure. Just keeping everything really clean and streamlined with your messaging. Awesome. Here's another good one, and Michelle, I'm gonna give this one to you because I think it complements what you presented well. So, what ad formats are the most effective for attractions to use on Facebook?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I also highly recommend checking out the travel playbooks after they're sent out today, just to lean into what different options we have across the Facebook platform. But I would start with testing just different formats. Obviously, begin with video. I feel like that's our biggest opportunity, the lowest hanging fruit, where we've seen a ton of success across all different subverticals, but attracting folks as well. But video doesn't have to be any like high production process by any means. We have a few different options through Facebook Mobile Studio that you can actually add motion to your static images to create video. Once we start testing video, let's start testing carousel. Let's test the collection ad format. There are a couple examples in the content that I showed as well. But I think just leaning into a testing mindset with a different creative will be really, really helpful. Again, having clear and concise messaging around that too will be key there.
Yeah, I would probably add, like, just to reiterate on the video, because attractions are so much about the experience, right? That video to be able to tell that story and the excitement of people at your attraction. I mean, I think that's pretty crucial. The other thing we've seen kind of interesting, and I've seen this just over the years as well, is that brands are making good use of user-generated content, and there's actually tools to help you kind of curate that and get permission, the right permissions from your consumers, your customers to use some of that, so that their own experience of your attraction can be very compelling in a social environment. So kind of leveraging that, and even if you don't have, you're not using specifically users, I think that's where that production quality comes in. People think they have to have, the commercial quality 30-second spot to be in video, but no, the more authentic, kind of more home done video works really well in these environments.
For sure. No, that's a great call out. Excuse me. So moving down the list here, would I benefit more from focusing on stories or feed as a travel marketer?
I can jump in here on this. Thinking about just the different placements that we have across the platform, I think both are extremely important, and we can see a variety of different people across all the placements too, and then specifically just focusing on stories and feed for this question. But I would say don't limit yourself or your business by focusing on one or the other. As I was mentioning before, great opportunities, but capitalize on both of them to get in front of your potential bookers. Having stories and feed within the same ad set actually allows you to lean into the machine learning that Facebook has, so that Facebook can find that best possible person at that best possible cost for you as a business. We don't have to have different creative across feed and stories if we don't have the resources to create to do so. So don't think that we, need to have a variety of different sizes. If we can, great. If not, we haven't seen any issue with having like top and bottom on the stories if we're doing like a 1x1 or a 4x5 with that discoloration on the top or bottom in terms of conversion. Actually, it might look more organic since a lot of people post stories that way too. So I would lean into both of them, test both of them. And when I say testing, as I mentioned last question, utilize the split testing tool from that perspective.
Yeah,
Awesome.
to add to that, that nails it.
Yes, thank you. This next question we've gotten a few times now. So Michelle, this is probably a good one for you too. What are your thoughts on hashtags? Do they work? Or do they actually drive impact? What do we think?
Personally, I love using hashtags on my organic personal Instagram posts. But as you remember probably from the slide, a lot of folks are utilizing travel interest or gauging travel interest through hashtags. So going through the Explore tab, checking out what's available through the Explore tab. Where do I want to go next? Maybe a beach vacation from one of those images that we saw. But yes, hashtags are driving businesses forward, or they are driving impact overall in terms of inspiration. And having over 500 million hashtag travel or travel hashtags across the platform, I think kind of like sets the precedence there. It's the #1 interest on Instagram. Lean into hashtags. Again, see how that's working best for the business, and then we can gauge that overall inspiration, but definitely driving impact.
Good to know. Dave, this is a good one for you. So I've heard video is one of the most effective formats for travel marketers on social, but I don't have the assets. Is there a cost-effective way that I can solve for this?
Yeah, we partly answered that earlier, that you don't have to go super high production value on this. You can take a more low budget approach to the production. And then we have some tools at Sojourn that can take your static assets and they can create full motion video creative out of it that look fantastic. You would almost wouldn't know that it started with static assets. So there are tools like that and people that can help with those things to repurpose things you already have.
And to add there, I think this is like really, really common across a variety of different brands in the space. So again, just to reiterate, when thinking about video, it's not high production. It does not have to be, as Dave mentioned, you can add motion to current static images, GIFs, those are considered video assets. So playing around with the different options that we have through apps, through our video creation toolkit, directly through Ads Manager, just to test out and see how video works is a really good option. Leaning into your partners, leaning into Sojourn to help create that will also be really, really key. So just reiterating, doesn't have to be super expensive and really time consuming.
Perfect. And this next question kind of flows right into what you were just saying, Michelle. But we've got a couple iterations of it. So does social media marketing require a full-time focus? They're saying, our team is so small and we do post weekly, but, they really don't have time or resources to do more than that.
Totally. Time has always been tight. I feel like especially now, as many of you are taking on the additional responsibilities within the business. So fortunately, there's a variety of different solutions across the platform that can really be a more set it and leave it option. And leaning into the Facebook algorithm to learn over time and target those right customer base for you based on your goal. Travel ads, I think, is the perfect, combination of all of that together, as we can provide an automated and personalized touch to your potential visitors. It requires some setup, but very little maintenance once set up properly. So I think a really strong option for folks that maybe don't have as much time to dedicate like day-to-day, within Ads Manager. I also would recommend not making changes though within Ads Manager to your campaigns on a day-to-day basis anyways. Let your campaigns learn, let them run, weeks at a time to understand like truly how they are working best for your business.
Yeah, I would probably add that on the organic efforts, like clearly your team, you have to have consistency there. That's your presence. It's your interaction with customers in that format. And you as knowing your business better than anybody else, it's really your team that has to do that. On the advertising side, you can definitely leverage some of the automation that Facebook offers. And then folks like us also kind of can help you get started, get that up and running. We have our own kind of best practices and methodologies for how to optimize through the Facebook platform. And so that's an area where you can outsource a little bit because you don't have to have as in-depth knowledge of your business to translate that to ad campaigns on these platforms.
For sure. So this listener is asking, how can the effort between Facebook and Sojourn be integrated to generate better results for my campaign?
Yeah, I can start that one. So as a Facebook marketing partner, we really offer a turnkey solution for brands on Facebook and Instagram. And so when you don't have the resources to go invest the time to learn, get it all set up. That's a piece. Obviously, we're bringing unique audiences to the party too, so the targeting you're going to get kind of working in conjunction with the both of us will be enhanced from what's just straight up available on Facebook. We've definitely specialized in working with smaller businesses as well, smaller attractions, smaller hotels, where there are sometimes challenges to getting the algorithms to optimize for you, because you might have very few bookings that are happening on a day-to-day basis. And so we have techniques where we kind of combine our knowledge of the thousands of folks that we work with to bring that together to make the optimization work even better. So it's kind of another layer on top of what Facebook already does. And I think those are probably the key points.
Yeah, one of the many perks of being a Facebook marketing partner, right?
That's right.
So here's another one, Dave. How do I build in social as part of a cohesive strategy for multi-channel marketing?
Yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about multi-channel marketing, it goes back to that funnel. It really starts there. It's what's the most appropriate way to reach my customer, my prospect, depending on what their frame of mind is. And so you need knowledge about that frame of mind, and then you need the right environments to activate those. And as we talked about, right, Facebook and Instagram are appropriate at all levels, but there's definitely other tools when you think about SEM, search marketing, right? That's that's a very important place to be as well. Meta search if you're a hotel, right? So there are different channels, but the thing that stitches together the strategy is how am I going to target, and how does that creative message work in these different environments. So you need consistency across your messaging in the different channels, and the messaging has to be kind of appropriate to the stage that the consumer's at.
I think the only thing that I would add there, and I think that kind of like nails it on the head that Dave mentioned, but Facebook and Instagram allow you to connect with your customers early in that decision process, sometimes even before they know that they want to go. I know that's happened to me quite a bit, but we like to call this serendipitous booking. But when you're thinking about multi-channel marketing plans, lean into how you can engage with your customers early, how you can continue conversations through your advertising all the way through your booking. And I kind of mentioned this before, but really focusing on like, what can we do pre-trip, what can we do mid-trip, and what can we do post-trip? Especially post-trip, what can we do to bring them back again, or come to any of our other properties if we have multiple properties on that front.
Absolutely. I love that serendipitous booking. I'm gonna steal that. Dave, this is another good one. It kind of is similar to the one we just looked at, but can you dig into the benefits of having Sojourn data to support your Facebook campaigns?
Yeah, one thing that I haven't touched on yet is really the insights that we can bring. So, again, by looking at consumer behavior historically, right, we get a good feel for the travel patterns and the types of customers that are potentially interacting with your brand, have bought from you in the past. So we can know things like is this a person that just primarily travels with family? Are they a kind of into adventure sports? Are they a hiker? Are they eco-conscious? Right? These are things that we can know about travelers, that, and also basic kind of demographics. Male, female, age, income, right? So to help you inform your creative strategy, because you want to be speaking in a real relevant way. Obviously, it has to have your brand voice, but speaking, you might talk to someone, a senior couple that's planning a trip to visit their grandkids versus a young couple with with no kids, right? The creative might look different, still your brand, but you're going to try to resonate with that better. And so the insights around who the people are that you're targeting, as well as just access to those folks that are actually in market today. I think those are really the two biggest pieces that we can offer.
For sure. All right, so we might have time for one more. So here's one, Michelle, I think will be good from your perspective, and then probably Dave's too. I've invested most of my monthly budget in paid search, and it's working well for me, but I know social is also important. Is it worth it to move some of that budget over to Facebook?
I'll jump in first here, but absolutely. I mean, diversifying your portfolio is important. It's important when looking at different placements, so like the feed and the stories, but also across all channels that you are advertising on. But people convert in different ways too. I mean, travel's the #1 interest on Instagram. People spend their time on Facebook and Instagram, the family of apps, to discover and explore new places. So I think leaning into that will be crucial in terms of diversifying. But in addition to that, I guess I should say, paid search is intended to capture the express demand. When customers show the intent through those specific keywords, right? Facebook and Instagram allow customers to discover you before they make that purchase decision. So how can we create that inspiration again? How can we get outside of the sea of sameness from the creative, capture that attention to put those ideas in mind overall?
Yeah, I would add to that the trap we see brands fall into sometimes is actually kind of living too much in that bottom of the funnel. And it's an easy trap to fall into because the return on investment is higher there, if you think about it, right? These are people that have already know your brand probably. They maybe have bought from you in the past, right? You know they're actively looking for a trip today, so they're much easier to convert. There's competition, so you still have to be there. You can't just count on it. But if you live there, then all the people, how are you going to grow out of that, right? Now you're fishing in the pond of people who already know you, and so you have to diversify both kind of across channels because of what Michelle was saying about how people interact differently during that path to purchase, but also in these different funnel stages, right? So you got to be willing to take a little bit of short-term reduction in your return on investment, and think of it as more of a future investment. Now investing in the continued growth and the continued, keeping that funnel full, right? And so it's all really important. And search and retargeting typically are, especially your brand search terms, people are already searching for your brand name on SEM, like that is bottom of the funnel, like focus for sure.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome. All right. Well, I think that's just about all we have time for. I know there are like dozens and dozens more questions in here that we did not get to. But great job to both Dave and Michelle. Thank you both for your time and sharing your expertise with both me and our listeners. I know I have definitely learned more than a thing or two. Again, thank you for all the questions from the listeners. For your time, your engagement. I hope each of you also have a couple takeaways and you'll be able to apply some of those to your 2021 marketing plans and optimizations. So I know the inauguration is happening simultaneously here, so we will be sending out the recording and then we'll do our best to address all of these questions that we didn't have time for as well. So sadly, we are nearly finished with this particular Digital 101 series. And we just have one more session where we'll do a deep dive into metasearch as a travel marketing tool. So join us again on February 4th to tap into the basics and some strategic ways to utilize metasearch to promote your brand and help drive direct revenue and bookings. If you have specific questions around Meta you'd like us to cover off on, definitely get in touch by tagging Sojourn or send us a direct message, however you need to get in touch. But it's a new year for travel and I can't wait to see tourism rebound. So let's be sure we're all doing our part to get back on track. And if Sojourn or Facebook can provide some support for your 2021 plans, don't be a stranger. Stay healthy and be well, and we'll talk to you again next month. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.